Hey everyone, and welcome back to your Money Your Life podcast. I think we're at episode 194, if I'm not mistaken. Yes, episode 194. Before we get into it, make sure you like, subscribe, 5-star rate, and review the podcast. If you're watching on YouTube, hit the notification bell and subscribe as well. We'll get right into the market update of the week. We got a lot to cover. First and foremost, we're talking about the market. So I'm going to pull up a handy dandy chart showing us where we sit for the week. The market just opened actually as well, a little bit green. So we'll touch on that. But if you look at our chart, first thing you'll see for the week, once we get the chart working here, computer's moving a little bit slow. For the last 5 days, we're about last 5 trading days, about down 1.15, 1.54%, excuse me. Again, a little bit of context to it. We've seen a little bit of volatility for a few reasons. Um, we have more data on jobless claims, and jobless claims initial filings for unemployment benefits dipped last week, indicating that the U.S. labor remains strong. We've talked about that correlation to the labor market, CPI, PCE, what the Fed plans to do, policymakers plan to do. And we're seeing that the labor market still is relatively strong. And Jerome Powell is supposed to be speaking today, if I'm not mistaken, and telling us a little bit more about what's going on with the policymakers and what they're going to decide to do going forward. Policymakers being the Fed Reserve Board members who decide the policy on our market. So we'll see more information from them. Manufacturing index also rose 5 points in October, but remained in contraction territory at -9, lower than the -6.8 forecast. So again, all this data points are crucial to understand what the Fed's doing. And another data point is a treasury yield. The 10-year that we're looking at is nearing 5%. We talked about the long 30-year bond, which is a lot of an indication of what investors are thinking as far as confidence in the market sometimes. So that's one to watch. Remember, we went back to the chart on a year-to-date basis, still up roughly 12%, and had a good year so far. We'll see if the last quarter closes it out that way. But again, since late July, we've seen a little bit of a near-term pullback since late July. So that's our market update. We'll jump right in to our stories. The first one's a childcare story. U.S. childcare costs are rising, hits almost 40K per year. I think that's an annual number. So for all the child folks out there, we have many great clients with children. But there's a new Bank of America analysis finds the average monthly childcare payment in September was 32% higher than the average monthly payment in 2019. So on an annual basis, it roughly hits 40,000. In larger cities like New York, it's 45,000, a little bit higher. That's understandable. Being in bigger cities, different things, different compensation, all that stuff. It's usually a little bit more expensive in a bigger city. But that's something to note because we've looked at it. I just did a great workshop for AMZ and military families, and we talked a little bit about families and just in general how you plan for it, how you save for kids, what account types. It's all preferential, but I do send people a report on it, breaks down the different account types, different pros and cons, and all that good stuff. Again, it's preferential, but for advisors, they can manage account types for custodials. The 529 is a state plan, so it's really preferential, and they have some different leniences depending on where you think your child will do or what you think you want your child to do in when that money goes to them. So next, we're going to focus in our next story on Netflix. So they raised their prices because they saw growth. They tacked on another 8.8 million paying members in Q3, far more than the 6 million that the analysts expected. So let's read in on this story because Netflix subscribers, and it's just an interesting company to watch and how well they're doing. Again, that surge in third quarter subscriber numbers. They're going to raise their price in the US, the UK, and France, and their stock was trading a lot higher based on this news. They're up 14% currently on the day because they did well. They added subscribers, which is the main thing number that investors are going to look at. They're going to be able to raise prices because they have decent retention, really strong retention, and subscriber growth as well. So they're even raising prices. And so the US, so the premium plan, the basic and premium plans will now cost $11, almost $12, and $23 respectively in the US. And they said their starting point is extremely competitive with other streamers. And analysts like that because they're able to raise prices and grow. They're doing it globally as well. Ongoing streaming globally. So 2.4 million was global streamers that were added out of that 8.8, I believe. And so they're really, really trying to again grow in all markets. Free cash flow was almost 2 billion. So they have a lot of cash and the balance sheet is strong. Again, they're performing, right? And I was looking at the chart on them earlier, year to date, just doing decently after this nice jump on the subscriber news. The 1 year chart here will looks nice for them as well. So 5 year, I'm curious on the 5 year. 5 year, not bad as well. 5 year, not bad. So we're keeping an eye on what companies like Netflix are doing, because I think it's super, super important. Another thing that we've been keeping an eye on is the mortgage demand, the housing market. Mortgage demand hit another low. It's the lowest level since 1995. So that's the mortgage purchase demand. People looking for mortgages, looking to purchase houses more than likely. It hit 8%. Mortgage rate hit 8% for the first time since 2000. And so really we talked about this dichotomy in the housing market. What does the Fed want? Does the Fed want the housing market to slow down a little bit? Because that would slow down the numbers on CPI. So that's another interesting take. How do you slow numbers on the housing market? I don't know. Potentially if people aren't buying houses, if they don't feel well in their jobs, what does the Fed think about that? That's another thing to think about. So we talked about it. We'll keep an eye on the mortgage demand going forward. Another thing to keep an eye on, and we hold a moment of silence for the Rite Aid workers, but Rite Aid may not survive. They filed a Chapter 11 bankruptcy, and it's raising doubts that they'll be able to remain in business. They're going to close 154 underperforming stores. They're unloading their elixir, their pharmacy business, and they lost more than 1 billion in the most recent quarter. And they're looking to restructure about 4 billion in debt. So again, all these things are concerning because it's a company that may not survive. It may put people that are in areas where their Rite Aid was their only pharmacy in a pharmacy desert, as they call it, because they cannot get close enough to their most closest pharmacy building or store anymore. So especially when you're dealing with pharmacies, medical healthcare, it's always touchy because we don't want people to be out of places they go to their solace, their healthcare, their needs. So we'll keep an eye on that story. One thing we also are keeping an eye on is Disney. Disney's breaking out their ESPN financials for the first time. They don't do that from what we've seen, but in a filing Wednesday, they decided to say, all right, we're going to break it out. The filing showed that revenue declined 4.4 billion in the first quarter to about 4.06. In the third quarter, Disney has been seeking a potential strategic partner for ESPN. So the reason why they're probably breaking out the finances of ESPN, which they said that the ESPN business, most of its revenue comes from carrier fees. It charges cable TV providers. So the cable TV providers to carry ESPN, they're going to be charged a fee. To advertising on ESPN, you're going to be charged a fee. And it's actually shown that ESPN does well on the profits. They bring in less revenue than Disney Studios, so the studio side, right? But they bring in more profits. It's more profitable business. Disney Studios burning cash, has a lot of expenses, try to create content. But if you look at it, ESPN is a more profitable business. So they're looking to spin out ESPN, meaning Disney, the head company, looking to spin out ESPN. That's why they're breaking out the financials, because they're saying, all right, everybody, take a look into what this business is valued at, right? What are our profits? What do we think our profits are? And if you like them, here they are. Maybe you want to purchase. So ESPN delivered more than 16 billion for Disney's fiscal year 2022, and 2.9 billion in profit. The vast majority of that came from the domestic business. By comparison, Disney's entertainment business, which includes streaming services, linear TV network, and TV media studios, brought in 40 billion in revenue and 2.1 billion in profit. So a lot of expenses there on the services side, on the entertainment business side, linear TV networks and TV and movie studios. So it's really, really interesting. We'll keep an eye on that. I think that's an interesting story to kind of watch going forward. There was a couple other news, one being that HSBC, a bank, they're actually banning texting on work phones. So regulators have been cracking down on big companies using, their cell phones for like their business stuff, texting, I should say, primarily because it's hard to record and keep records of that, which they're supposed to be able to do. HSBC is a mega bank and they're disabled texting on its employees' work phones. So if they're one of those employees that have a work and personal phone that are one, they can't text anymore. They have to go get a whole nother phone because they're banning texting on work phones. Financial institutions are required to keep those records. And so they're banning it. I think that's really interesting. Another story I found interesting and or weird, Elon Musk and X, formerly known as Twitter, they said to battle bots, they're going to charge people $1 a year, new users $1 a year. They're going to start doing it in New Zealand and the Philippines, and they're probably going to roll it out worldwide. They said it's going to be new users first, but I'm assuming they're going to make it for everyone. He's just looking for ways to get subscription revenue because advertising revenue on X is really, really down. And so that's going to be interesting to watch if they lose a lot of users from that. I just potentially see they're having a rather significant dip because of that policy. What's not having a dip is sports and NBA tickets, NFL viewership. They're on a tear. So the NBA said that the ticket sales to start of the season are 60% higher than this time last year. StubHub says that it's expected to draw more than 2x the number of international fans. So international fans are getting into the game. That's why the NFL is doing 3 or 4 games a year in Europe because they want to get international fans. They actually probably want to move the Jaguars out to London because the owner of the Jaguars, I think, is a London native. So if you look at the viewership numbers on the NFL, they're incredibly high this year. It's a mixture of pop culture, gambling, all these different things that are driving viewership up when it comes to sports. So we'll keep an eye on that. Fantasy football update. I don't think I've given folks an update in a while. We have one individual that's winning. He's undefeated. All right. I'm actually having a horrible fantasy football year so far. 1-5, bottom of the league. Can I turn around and make the playoffs? Stay tuned. I'm going to try everything I can. But we've been getting crushed. And it's not me as the manager, the strategist. It can't be me. It's the players. I picked them, they aren't showing it up, but they're going to turn it around. They're going to turn it around. We'll see. With that said, we are going to jump into our questions of the week, and we have a lot. We're going to rapid fire them and see how you do with the answer. The first one being, can you name at least 5 passwords that are most common that people use? Say it in your head slowly. 5 of them. Oh, we have answers. The first one is guessed, not guess. That's the first password. The next one's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Third is password. Next is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Next is A, 1B, 2C, 3. So it's all a combination of these letters, numbers, easy, super easy. That's what people are out there doing as the most common, I'll say, as the most common, but we don't know if they're still utilizing that. The next question. What do 98% of consumers do prior to buying a product? Online reviews, read online reviews. If you said that, you are so correct. So correct on that one. Next being, and we're going to switch over to the fraud lane. What generation is more likely to fall for online scams? Baby boomers or Gen Z? I said Gen Z, and the correct answer, if you said Gen Z as well, you are correct. Gen Z is 3 times likely as boomers to fall for an online scam, twice as likely as boomers to get hacked on social media. That rings true to me. That rings true. According to the Federal Trade Commission, the FTC, what is the most common type of fraud? I was going to say some sort of Ponzi scheme, but it's imposter scams. I don't know what that means, but that is the most common. So, folks, we appreciate you for being a common listener every week. One and only Your Money Your Life podcast. Make sure you share with family, friends, because we do this every week, and we will see you next week.